My name is Samuel Hill. I'm Director of Product Marketing with Medigate. How many are familiar with Medigate? Raising your hands. All right, I see actually there's a couple of ringers in the room. There's some folks that I know the platform really, really well and use it a lot, so it'll be good. If you have questions, I'll just turn it over to them and they can answer it for you. But it's also nice, it's a real world experience. These are actually users of it that have seen it and put it into their environment. So as the Director of Product Marketing at Medigate, my job is to help tell the story of what we do for the hospital environment. And I got started, one of my first jobs was as an emergency room technician at 2 different hospitals. One of them, I live near Seattle, Washington. So my first hospital they worked at was in Tacoma, Washington, with Multi-Care Health System. And if anybody knows folks that work at or work in that area. The second hospital I worked at was down in Orange, California at St. Joseph Hospital of Orange, California. It's now part of Providence. And I've had the opportunity to go through an electronic health record transition from paper to the actual EHR twice in my life. Both of them were fun as a frontline care person. So if you've lived through an EHR transition, you guys know what's talking about. One of them was to Epic and the other one was to Meditech. And I'll let you guess which one went better. You guys can probably fill in the blanks there. So Medigate, what we do is we exist to collect data and analyze data coming off of your network so that you can better operate and better manage and better secure all of the devices, every device that's connected to your network. And so what we'll cover today is we're going to talk about some of the challenges in your device life cycles as we understand them. I always feel a little bit, I don't know, odd talking to people who are practitioners in this space saying, hey, here's the challenges that you're facing. I don't know, I'm not doing this every day. You guys are. So if there's things that you disagree with or say, oh, I'd like to add some clarification to that, please let me know. Let's talk about it because I feel like there's nothing better than that. Yes, John. Quick point. Here's a question and answer the comments. If you could repeat those back, because you are mine. Yes. For the people listening recording, they can understand what question you're asking. Absolutely. We'll make sure we restate the questions and the comments from the room for the microphone so that it can be perpetuated on that. Thank you, John. Sorry for interrupting. Not an interruption at all. We'll talk about how accurate data about the devices themselves can be of great benefit for you and your organization. And we'll look at some of the things that the Medigate platform does, which will help you reconcile your connected inventory, track the utilization of the devices, monitor their location, and then provide you some things around efficiency to help recommend things that we can do to better optimize, better operate the fleet of devices in your environment. And then finally, we'll talk about how we can measure this with a really fantastic return on investment. Does that sound okay? All right, excellent. So healthcare, in our opinion, is challenged by poor medical device data. And we believe this really impacts both security and operations. Medigate got our start as a company many, many years ago, actually 2017, right after WannaCry. And that whole ransomware event in healthcare, big, massive thing. And we realized that there wasn't enough data about the devices connected and communicating on the network to be able to make informed decisions and help to secure them, operationalize them, all of the things that go along with these devices operating. But not only that, so security is a high value use case, but on top of that, how they operate. These devices are everywhere. They're almost ubiquitous inside of a hospital, whether it's we were talking about one of those external pacemakers today, whether they're IV pumps, whether they're glucometers, you name the device, they're everywhere and they're directly responsible for the care and providing the care of the patients that trust our organizations to help them on the worst day of their lives. So the security and the operations. So what we did is we built a leading platform so we could help improve the effectiveness of every device. Looks like there's some people standing in the back. If you want to stand in the back, that's fine, but I think we can maybe consolidate a couple of seats, maybe bring a couple folks in so we can have some seats for our friends here. And again, if you're okay standing, perfectly fine as well. So let's see if you resonate with any of these, if these seem like they're true for you. Anybody have a hard time keeping the data in your CMMS up to date? Anybody? We got one brave soul raising his hand over here. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. The rest of us are still in denial, I think. Does that resonate? Does that seem like it's a true thing? It's, you know, the CMMS, you spend a lot of energy and effort. You get all the data fields populated. You have to go into a device itself, all the different settings buttons to get down to the actual pieces of information on that device. And then you input it into, you know, whether it's your Nuvolo, your AIMS, your TMSs, whatever you got in your CMMS world. And then the device moves, and it has a new IP address, and it has a new locate. It just moves. Something happens. Very difficult to keep them up to date and accurate. Are we okay so far? I'm just looking for your feedback. Is that true or not? It's okay. If it's not true, let's talk about it. It's time consuming to conduct the preventative maintenance. You know, PM is a fact of life. We have to do it. It has to be done on these devices. And finding them, getting them through the appropriate structures and systems and checks and all of those pieces, it can take a long time. We had one of our clients that told us it takes them about 500 hours just to find the 10% of the devices in their environment that they put through PM, but they couldn't find them physically. So we had 100 devices. We couldn't find 10 of them, and that took us X amount of time to go walk the hospital and find them. Does that seem like a true? Yeah. Okay. Good. So far, so good. Two for two. See if number 3 can keep us on track here. Par leveling. How do you guys manage par leveling today across your organizations? You say we need to have 100 devices on this floor. And then how do you keep track of whether 100 devices are actually on that floor? And then later in the day, the nurses are calling and saying, where are my devices? I need them. We need to do this thing. So ineffective par leveling is something that you always seem to be chasing. It's always something that never quite is right. Does that feel true? Okay. How many of you lease or rent devices in your environment? Yeah, a couple of brave people there raising their hands. Yeah. How do you know if those devices are actually doing their job and doing them effectively, or are being used enough to justify the amount of money you're paying, and however you've structured that lease payment, whether it's monthly, annually, quarterly, whatever it is. So there's devices that are sitting in your environment not doing very much, but you're paying a premium to rent them for the privilege of them being in your environment, not doing very much. So far, so good? Okay. One of my favorites, the device that was marked lost or missing in your CMMS, you spend all that time trying to find it, get it through PM, and it's gone. Who knows? But yet it's still providing patient care, right? Does that ever happen to anybody else? Okay. And the classic, the nurses that are hoarding the devices. None of your nurses probably do this. Your nurses are probably, exceptional human beings, and they just know the value of having the device available for everyone. And they're not all concerned about, no, I want that device for my patient. I'm going to need it later, so I'm going to hide it in that one soiled utility room or that closet in that one, right? Ceiling tiles. Anyone else have a fun spot that a nurse has hit a device? Ceiling tiles. Windows, the roof. Oh my goodness. Your locked cabinets. Yep. The Pixis, maybe. That would be a fun spot to hide a device. That'd be tough. Their nurses are creative, man. They're super creative. They know how to get the job done. I mean, if you want something done, you ask a nurse to do it, man. They will get it done. So when I worked in the emergency room, I did that for about 7 years. And there was many times I worked night shift as well, which made it even more fun. But there were times where you run out of stuff. Like we didn't have any IV pumps. We needed the infusion pumps. They weren't there. So what are you gonna do? Well, my job became, I got to go walk around, because as an emergency room tech, you know all the hallways, you know where every building and every department is, because you spend a lot of time walking around. And so I would walk around all like the med surg units, kind of not the high acuity units, not like the ICUs, because we actually liked them. They took care of really sick patients. We didn't want to take their stuff. But med surg, I don't know. We felt they could afford to lose a few devices, so we would just walk up there, and there were some nights I'd have a giant IV pole and I had loaded, 10, 15, 20 IV pumps on. I'd start walking by the nurse's station, pushing my IV pumps, wave at them. The look on their face, like they were glaring. They're just like, what are they gonna say? Like they could say it was. So nurses hoard devices, hard to keep them around, hard to keep them where they need to be. It's a problem. And we think we can help solve this. And I want to show you some of the ways that we think that using accurate data about the devices as they're communicating on your network are going to help you better operate the total number of devices in your fleet. So let's talk about data for a second. Every single one of these devices that's connected to your network is transmitting. How many are familiar with like internet protocol or opening up languages that these devices speak on the network, routing and all that stuff? See some nods of heads. This is just a diagram of some of the encoding on, this is a Drager patient monitor. This is looking at the different, bits and bytes and numbers and all that kind of stuff. And what we do at Medigate is we plug an appliance that sits inside the core of your network, and it gets a mirror traffic. So it sends a copy of all of the network traffic to our appliance, and then we analyze it. We speak about 170 plus different proprietary device languages. So not only do we see the traffic, we actually can understand it. Does anyone here speak languages other than English? Okay, we've got one hand over there. Do you mind saying what language it is that you speak? If you're not comfortable, that's fine. Spanish, okay. Spanish as well, yeah. Hindi, excellent. Anybody else? I could probably say hello, good morning, good afternoon in Spanish, but I would be completely lost in Hindi. Completely lost. That's the reason. So if your device is speaking a language that you don't understand and don't know, it's very difficult to have communication and understand what's happening. So what we do is we use a technique called deep packet inspection to open up the specific packets of information being sent on the network. And looking at all of these different bits and bytes, we can start to understand the bits and pieces of the message that the device is sending. And so that tells us all sorts of different pieces of information about that device that we can then use to inform a lot of the pieces of the hospital's operation. Even down to things like the operating system version, the different codes and different software releases and revisions, all of those pieces become very, very important as you begin to operationalize this data. It's all available. It's all right there inside of the network traffic. We just collect it and we analyze it. And then we present it to you in a user experience, user interface that you can then use to a lot of things. This is a screenshot out of our Medigate platform. I'm going to show you a few more of those screenshots. If you'd like to see even more about the Medigate platform itself, normally when I do a talk like this, I like to pull up our actual dashboard, click around, show you different pieces, have the actual live conversation where the pieces and parts that you care about can be talked about. Please come to our booth, booth 600, while we're here. We're happy to do that. This is just a little bit of the device profile. Hard to see the different pieces in here. Take my word for it. There's about 100 different data points about the device itself, including its device ID characteristics, version, model, how it's connected to the network, the location, the physical location. As we can see, this one right here is in the Clinton Building 3, floor number 2. We could actually click on, I'll show you that a little bit later. There's spaces we can get very specific about the location of the device. What does it look like in your CMMS? Or if you're using a CMDB, is it hospital owned? What unique device IDs do you have with it? All the different characteristics that you would get out of your CMMS or you would want in your CMMS bidirectionally coming there. Have you given it any custom attributes, any unique pieces of ID? Hey, this is its acquisition date. About 100 different data points that we have now created as a profile for this specific device. This, by the way, is an Alaris infusion pump. I know none of you guys have any of those in your environment, so it's probably really rare and outside use case there. Fair? Any questions so far on the data collection or the process of giving it a device profile and the data points that we gather? Indeed, yep. MAC addresses should be a permanent fixture of the device. Sometimes they are not, but we can track those and we definitely see that. So they are reporting that. Yep. Let me see, it's actually right there. Any other questions? It is cloud-based, that's correct. Yep, so the collecting is happening inside of your environment. The analysis and presentation is a cloud software as a service. We do not, no. Yeah, we strip out all the PHI and the PII so that none of it is sent into the analysis itself. We do that at the packet, the inspection layer, and we have every SOC certification you could possibly imagine. Trust.medigate.io will tell you all of the different ways that we have secured our cloud services. Question right over here in the back and then right up in the front. Yes, sir. We do integrate with the CMMS. I will get to that point a little bit later, but absolutely, there's a bidirectional connection to your CMMS itself. Whatever your CMMS is. So we're seeing the network traffic, which is generating, the network traffic is generating everything up to about there. All this pieces. Because we've integrated it with the CMMS, we can then get information down here. Yeah, serial number, device ID, unique device IDs tied to the device itself, yeah. Yes, sir.
Does it tell you what modules are connected?
Absolutely. So the question around serially connected, serially attached modules, the sidecars, that kind of stuff. Yes, we do see those. Yes, yes. Other questions? Excellent. So now with this data, we begin to start, we do a couple of things. We do 3 things really well that I think are very applicable to the operation of devices in your hospital that can help make them more effective. So this is the Medigate dashboard. This is the homepage. See different widgets. It's reporting total number of devices, which is on your corporate and on your guest. We've found, I think one of my favorite stories to tell is the Tesla that was found connected to the network. I really hope it was on the guest network, but you never know. It could have been on the corporate network, which would have been a problem. breaking them down into medical devices, OT devices like your building management systems, the IoT devices that are all over the place, and then IT managed assets as well. Getting down into the different manufacturers and protocols that these devices are speaking and communicating on the network with. How are they being affected? What kind of alerts are coming about these devices? What the types and the family classes of these devices. You know, we got infusion pumps, smartphones, patient monitors, medical device integrators, all the different stuff that you would expect to see on your hospital's network, being able to see them and report based off of a family class. And then even the high-risk device types. Again, we got our start as a security company, so our focus has been how are we going to track and manage the vulnerabilities of these devices. So if there's a known CVE, it's really hard to track that known CVE unless you know what software versions are on your devices, right? So you can say, oh, you know, Siemens comes out and says, yeah, we got a known thing, and you know, here's what you should do about it. And you say, well, great, is it applicable to you and your environment? The answer is maybe. And you have to do all that legwork to go figure out whether it is or is not applicable to your environment. Or if there's a breach or an issue, and all of a sudden your IT security team is asking you and saying, hey, how many devices are running Windows 7 right now? I don't know. Well, we can tell you inside of this Medigate platform. Were you raising your hand, sorry, for a question?
Is the information is alive, active?
Yes.
As long as it's connected to the system, does it have to be transmitting data, or is it always searching that information as long as it's connected?
Yeah, because the question is how active and how up to date is the information coming from? Yeah. So I'm saying restating the question for the microphone a little bit too. So the answer is yes, it is as real and real time as the network traffic is. I like to say near real time. Real time for me means hugs. Like real time is like, you know, keeping babies in the NICU. We're near real time. So we're very close to accurate as far as that comes. So no, this is not going to be more than 2-3 minutes out of date. Yeah.
What level of the network is it on?
So it's sitting in the core of your network. It's using a mirror or a span or tap or something, whatever technique you would use in the core of your network to get a copy of the traffic. So the question was, what level of the network is it connected into? Yeah. So deployment models would have to be adjusted. We have a whole team of engineers and post-sales people that adjust and connect and help you deploy all of it.
Do you see any issues with segmentation, pre-implementation causing issues?
So the question is around segmentation strategies causing issues in deployment pre. So you're talking like ACI, or you're talking about SDN? What kind of segmentation are you talking about? Yeah, so we've actually have a question on ICE segmentation. We have a lot of customers that use ICE as their primary segmentation strategy, and I'll say this: we're all friends here. ICE is tough. Anybody tried to work with ICE? ICE is hard. Like it's just brutally difficult. We help ICE get better because they don't have enough granular visibility to the devices, so they can actually apply the ACLs and segmentation rules that they would want. You know, so it's hard to say we can apply very specific rules to keep things segmented without knowing what's actually on the network. So we actually work with a lot of clients on their ICE deployments to speed it up. But in a pre-deployment world, that's all just a matter of just the planning of how it goes in and understanding it. Okay, so here's just now we've drilled into medical devices on our platform, looking at the different types of devices that you would expect to see. Again, we see millions of medical devices across our customer base. We have about 130 total hospital customers, which is well over, I think, 1,400 hospital sites all over the globe. And so we're seeing just oodles and oodles of traffic and data coming from these devices. And we see weird devices. We have customers, we actually just did this recently at a customer that's now signed on with us, where we have our data team, they go on what's called a device hunt, where they just go look at the traffic itself and start finding all of the things that we haven't been able to classify yet for whatever reason. And we go on a device hunt and they put on their really big headphones and they get into the code, and it's not work for me to do because I couldn't do it. But they find stuff and they classify it and they confirm it with you guys, and that's something that is very, very powerful. So millions of devices seen, it's all reporting it to you in your dashboard, and then you can start clicking in and drilling into the specific devices themselves. And what we use then, so now we have all this, we can start reconciling this inventory with your CMMS. Now, this is your connected device inventory. If it's not communicating on the network, we're not as great at seeing it. We do partner and are working to partner with some of the RTLS providers, like a Stanley Centrac or others that are providing RTLS. But if it's communicating on the network, we see here. So this is looking at, this is an AIMS CMMS that we're looking at the integration of. And we see that there are some assets, you know, CMMS network assets, just over 6,500 assets. whereas we're seeing just about 7,200 medical devices or clinical devices on the network. So there's a delta there that our devices being transmitting on the network versus what's currently reflected in your source of truth, the CMMS. And so we can go through what's called a reconciliation process to match these devices, doing that on the front end so that you can keep the data up to date, or like I said, near real time. It's not going to be split second, but as up to date as it's better than having to spend an hour walking and looking for that device and then finding that one characteristic that you then go update in your CMMS and hope it stays accurate. Questions on this part? So the first thing we're going to do with the data is we're going to help make sure your inventory is as up to date as physically possible and as near real time as possible.
So your reconciles what your inventory is supposed to be and what you're seeing right now. I'm assuming the cloud or that information database has the last location where it was.
Correct.
Like maybe shut off, it's in the closet.
That's correct. So the question is like the integration into the CMMS, we can around location. So yes, we can see where it was transmitting on the network last, how long ago it was transmitting on the network, and then help you with that. I'm going to jump into that in just a second. Absolutely. Other questions on the inventory reconciliation? Excellent. So now we're going to talk about utilization of these devices. The statistic that and you can tell me if you think this is true or not, but as we've looked at the industry and talked to our customers, we find that a medical device typically sits idle, so doing nothing, about 52% of the time. Right? Does that seem about right? Anybody have a different measure that they would use for that? Certainly, yeah. Yeah. Right, we want our MRI machines operating a little bit more than 48% of the time. That would be good. But an IV pump would be a good standard.
I would agree with IV pump. Patient monitor, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully patient monitors. Well, actually, yeah, you can go two ways on that conversation. But yeah. But yeah, so we should be, we want the devices to be used. We want them to be reasonably used at a reasonable rate, correct? So for whatever that device needs to be. So we can track this, again, looking at our favorite, the Alaris infusion pump, and you can see the sidecars that are on there. We do see all that information about them, the serially connected things. This one in our demo system is showing about a 21% utilization rate, a little suboptimal. Perhaps we could find better ways to use it. So now that can start telling us things like, have we lost too many of them? Are they stashed away in weird places? Do we need to better help our frontline teams find them? So
you're looking at a unique device here, right?
Correct, yes, sir, a unique device.
Look at the level at the type.
Absolutely, yes. So the question around unique device versus family of devices, absolutely. So you can go to the whole class level, and then go from there.
21% for this device, but all of them maybe 46.
So this actually is the family of devices around Alaris infusion pumps. You can see the individual devices down here. So this whole family is around 21%, which we can do better than that. I think all of us would hope to. But then you can start drilling into the specific devices themselves to see how often it's being utilized. This is also very helpful when you think about it, because if you have to get this device through PM, when should you take it through PM? Well, when it's not being used, right? That's the best time to take a device. So you're not having to go take it out of a patient's room. And obviously you're not going to do it while it's infusing or doing its job. So finding out when the right time to take the device out of service so you can do the PM on it, also a useful thing there. The question around the BD pumps, we are measuring the PCU and all the attached modules. Correct. Yes. Yep. We see the traffic as those modules. We see them coming through the main control unit, and then we can measure how often they're being used as well. Yeah. Steve.
I don't know if this helps you, but during COVID, we had supply chain going to the CFO saying we need to buy more infusion pumps because we didn't have enough. And we were able to use the program and show them that we were about 65%. And that made the CFO go back to supply chain saying, go find your pumps that are there, you're not using them. And the beauty is, when they challenged it, we pulled down the reports and we said, last time it was seen was in September, and this is January or February. So you got them, they're hidden somewhere, you got to go find them now. And when the CFO of the organization's going after it, they seem to jump pretty well.
Well, what it does is it gives all of the different stakeholders, because you're right, your CFO organization, your supply chain organization, biomed organization, frontline, they're all concerned about the same thing, which is a device available to be doing patient care. We all care. That's the end goal. So you all get to now look at the same common data set that you can make decisions off of, and you could agree based off of, hey, this is what we're all looking at here. This question over here. So the question around calculation of looking at the packets themselves, because we open the packet up, we actually can see when it's doing its job versus not doing its job. So it'll communicate on the network, it'll ping or ARP on the network to do something to say, hey, I'm here, I'm available. Do I have a new drug library? All those different pieces that it does. So we'll see actually when it's doing the work that it was intended to do. So that's how we track utilizations, when it's doing that. Steve.
Sam, another thing you talked about serial.
Yep.
And we have fetal monitors in labor and delivery, and they're all sending serial data to the fetal heart monitoring program, the central station. And I didn't realize it, but it actually takes the serial data and was able to tell us all the fetal monitors that were connected to it. I was kind of surprised by that. I didn't realize it could do that.
Yeah.
Off serial data.
Yeah. So it
gave us all the information about the fetal monitor, just like if you're on there.
Yeah. So yes, sir.
Historical data, so you're looking at 21% now.
Yes.
About a week ago.
Tracking it based off of, yep, we could track the historical data based off of whatever time parameters. We obviously can only track it back to when we've been observing it, right? Fair enough, but we definitely can track it based off of, and then we can report on it. We can generate whatever reports you need to show, peers, others in the industry, in the organization.
So someone said, okay, I want to know the highest usage percentage we have ever hit.
Yeah.
You can show them.
Absolutely, we can show them the highest usage percentage, the lowest usage percentage, families that are being used. We can start customizing this range where we say, hey, an optimal utilization rate, we say for this device it should be 75%. That's probably reasonable, I think, for an IV pump. We can go from there, and then you can say, are we hitting it? Are we not? Yes, sir.
Larger modalities like CT,
Yep.
MR, they're both you monitor the past traffic to see how that utilization is.
Yep.
Like how many patients per day and specific CT. Actually.
Here it is right here. So this is I think a GE CT scanner. What are we looking at? I'm sorry, Brilliance Big Bore. Yep, Brilliance Big Bore. So we're looking at, because we speak DICOM, and we can integrate with then also with your RIS as well. So we can kind of triangulate, because some of that times that traffic is encrypted, so which means we can't open the packet to inspect it. So we have to triangulate a little bit, which we do. So we can see how often was that CT scanner in use, what scans was it performing, how long did that scan take, what was the interval of time between scans. All of that data is available and reportable. We actually had a customer, and I have a whole ROI thing later, but we had a customer that looked at that and said we needed to perform more. I think it was a PET scan or something like that. And they had 4, 3 of which were doing an advanced study, and their radiologists were like, we need to do more of these. This is what our demand level is like. And so they're like, okay, we got to buy a new PET scanner because we need to have another one available. They were able to look at the utilization and realize, actually, because we know this one is not being used for that, we can see the software versions. Oh, all it was a software upgrade for that 4th scanner that was able to then perform the study that was being asked for by the radiologists and the patient demand. And so now instead of spending what $3 million plus on the scanner itself, and then however many millions on the construction and facilities cost to get that scanner in, and it was a $10,000 software upgrade. So balances out. Yes, sir.
Is there any benchmarking to similar hospital systems built into the solution?
Absolutely. Yep. We benchmark what your utilization rates are based off of, and you can base it off of, are we an academic? Are we a 300-bed hospital? Are we a 600-bed hospital? Teaching, whatever you want to do, we can benchmark it based off of different criteria. And also you can internally benchmark it. So if you've got like 5 hospitals in your system, you can say, hey, our standard is, and then you can look to see, are your individual sites measuring up to what you're wanting it to do. Steve again.
Sam, we found 2 devices that this program was valuable to us. Ultrasounds.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're buying ultrasounds every which way they can. And we're able to show that there were some that weren't being utilized. They can just move them around. And those are pretty expensive. The same with C-arms.
Yeah.
Same with C-arms. Every doc wants his own C-arm, and when you show utilization, then that changes that tune pretty quick.
Yeah. So the doctor is able to say, oh, I'm going to be able to do what I need to do, but the hospital doesn't have to spend the millions to buy a new C-arm. Other questions on the utilization? Yes, sir.
And what's the visibility on like standard IoT devices? Is it about the same usefulness?
Yes, so we're reporting the utilization metrics currently on the medical devices right now, but the data is all there. So that's one of the things that I've noticed about. So we built this in conjunction with like 10 or so hospitals that were saying this is what we want the data to show us. So the IoT devices are all there. We could pull similar data about it. Yeah. Okay, So we've talked about how we get to reconcile your inventory with your CMMS. We've talked about how we're going to track the utilization of these devices, again, based off of this unique profile collected from the data on the network traffic. The final thing that we're going to help impact is its physical location. So this is that solution to the nurses hiding them in ceiling tiles or locked cabinets or random places. So here is a map of a specific facility. This is the Albany building, building 3, floor number 9 in our demo system, our wonderfully made up fictional system. And we can see things like there are devices here, there's some devices over here. And you know, if there's a device that you're looking for and you're like, I need to search this serial number, you plug it into the system and it's going to pop up and it's going to show you generally where that device either is or was recently. I mean, that would save your searching time. I mean, cut it down to next to nothing at that point, comparatively. So we pull this map out of your network management software, whether it's you're using Cisco's, whatever their network management stuff is, or Aruba's Airwave or whatever tools that you're using to network manage. So these are not our maps that we've generated. These are already the existing maps in your network management software. We integrate with that, and so you can see it live in the system here. And you can track it down to, there's where it is beaconing inside of that one room over there so that you can go locate it quickly. Questions on this? No, it's included. The network location information comes as a part of this software.
They're not doing it with RTLS, they're just doing it from where it's pinging on the network.
Correct, yeah, so it's, yeah, we, gotcha. So as far as how Medigate packages our product, we have our core product, which delivers all of that data. And then we do stuff that helps with like cyber hygiene, which your security operators care about, network policy management, which is about network segmentation that your network operators care about. And then what we're calling this is clinical device efficiency. So we have 3 modules that we sell on top of our core data platform. So without knowing what your organization did purchase, we could figure that out for you. Yeah.
An interesting use case.
Yep.
We're doing a proof of concept right now
Yep.
with Medigate. And how we've sold it to other departments is it provides a single place to go to. So you talked about the network map.
Yeah.
Well, you can give biomed or field services access to Cisco Prime. Networking team isn't going to do that. Have Cisco Prime feed it into your product.
Right.
They can go there. And same with other stuff on network location. You mentioned AIMS and
Yep.
stuff like that. Rapid7,
Yep.
Yep. Vulnerability scanners. Again, it's a one-stop shop that you can share that with different people, and there's different roles as well. So that's how we sold it. Everybody gets to go to one spot, get their data.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people in the organization that will care about different pieces. You're talking about that, it's called role-based access in a way. So you're absolutely right, like people care about different stuff. Yes, sir.
When you talk about par leveling,
Yeah.
Definitely for different departments it means something different, because if I'm a clinician on the floor, I just want to know where there's a spare infusion pump that I can grab.
Right.
Is that built into the solution right now, or is that part of RTLS integration in the future?
So I would say for par leveling, we can show you par leveling based off of inventory disbursement or distribution across your system based off of a floor and different things that you have built into it. And so I wouldn't say it's like whiz bang, like wow, like amazing. You know, you're gonna still need to integrate it in your supply chain stuff. You're gonna still need to have those hard conversations with the frontline teams, but at least you'll have data to guide that conversation a little bit more effectively. Yeah. Okay, the last thing that we're using then, so we've talked about the location, we talked about the inventory, the utilization of it. Now, because we're seeing all this traffic, we're gonna start making some recommendations. And I think that's what we find at Medigate that really separates us from some of the competitors in our space is turning the lights on in a room is one thing. Getting visibility has to be the place that we start. But then afterwards, there's a now what question. There's a what do we do now? And so that's where we start saying, let's make some recommendations. One of my favorites is offline rented devices. The amount of devices that you have in your environment that you're paying a premium to have the privilege for them to sit around not doing anything. So these are devices that are labeled as rented in your CMMS but have not been online in the last 90 days. And as you can see, they're reporting that there are a grand total of, what do they say, how many were there? Where does it say that?
414.
414. This side right here. Underutilized rented devices, offline devices, or again, the lost and missing devices that are still doing patient care. Those are a challenge. And so now we can start making recommendations, or if we've got devices that are being underutilized, or we can maybe disperse them a bit better. This is where we've had clients that you know, they have the request from the frontline team that says we need another, one of them said another 700 infusion pumps. And they're able to look around their system and say, we've got pumps that are not as utilized or are sitting in storage, or all of these different things that happen. So it was a win-win because they didn't have to buy more pumps. So they saved a significant amount of money on their capital expenditure for new IV pumps. And the frontline teams got the devices that they needed to do their jobs. And so everyone wins in that kind of an environment, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. So making recommendations around what can we do to help optimize the fleet in general so it can be more effective at doing its job. This is where the whole, and now what? And now what can we do about this? So we're making some recommendations there inside the platform itself as well. Questions on this? Yes, sir.
So we have a pretty robust RTLS system.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have utilization and all of that.
Correct. Which RTLS do you use?
Do you have current integrations with RTLS systems to actually feed these sort of characteristics back into that?
Yes. Yeah. So we have Centrac is an integration that we have. Stanley has been proving a little tougher just because they're a much bigger company, but we will get them. If that's, we have done this so many times against different integration partners where if we have a customer that's saying we need to do this, it will get done. It's really an API bidirectional push and pull, which we've done for every other main technology company that's out there in the space. So I would not be concerned about the RTLS, and that's been something we've been working very quickly at. Okay. So measuring the return on investment, I put a little QR code up here if you want to pull out your phone and scan it. It'll take you to a calculator that we've built. And this calculator is tracking things like, we know on average a medical device, the best example of it would be an infusion pump. On average, it costs about $3,500. And we know it based off of, so what it's going to ask you to do is to input your specific, what you think the number of your medical devices are inside of your hospital environment. So if you're like, yeah, we have, 45,000 medical devices or whatever, 20,000, whatever that number is, plug that in there. It's going to run some math and calculations, and including the purchase of the Medigate platform with the licensing for this device efficiency module. I hope it shows you a measurable return on the investment in it just by better using the devices that you have and avoiding capital expenditure where possible. So we can help you with the device purchase planning. We can help you with your radiology capital projects, and we can help you better coordinate your preventative maintenance time. And with that, we've covered everything that I wanted to cover today. We can talk about different use cases and scenarios that we've deployed this in, and I'll open it up for questions. We're at, 40 minutes into the presentation time, so we're happy to end a little bit early as well. Yeah, Steve.
Under recommendations, you get a recall notice or whatever.
Yeah.
When you do can you talk about that and how the recommendations point to you?
Certainly. So because the question is around recall notices and recommendations in the platform, because we know a lot about the device, including its operating system and all the different values about it, we can help track if there's a known recall about that device, and it'll help you from a couple things. Now, you might not be able to get that device out of your environment. It might need to still remain operational. There's many reasons for that to be the case. So if that is going to be the outcome, is it needs to stay on your environment, we should segment it. We need to put some network security policies around it so that it can be isolated and fairly secure. Or here's the patch, here's the recommended remediation, or here is the manufacturer's suggestions to manage this recall. Those are all pieces that then do get bubbled up inside the platform so that you can begin to, again, that now what? Now what do we do with these devices and their either inherent risks or challenges or whatever that is? Yeah. We actually we're going to be at HISAC in May, and our big panel that we're going to be having there is all around this closed loop of reporting between medical device manufacturers, hospitals, and tools like Medigate, because we can sit in the middle of them. And if you have a known vulnerability on a device, you have to spend hours calling the device manufacturer, confirming the vulnerability. What steps do we need to, what are their recommendations? Is this a real thing? Is it not a real thing? Is it applicable to us? There's just a lot of work there. And we can be that conduit that helps to close that loop in between all the different organizations. So it's very powerful when you put data at the center of what you're doing to make decisions based off of it. Yes, sir.
Does it work for like this third-party wireless solutions? And we have some router integrations that we've done to devices that have had on wireless.
Okay.
And you've given them the information that that we wanted to broadcast. Does it recognize that device, or does it can interpret the data that's being passed through the actual equipment and see what it is?
So your question is around third-party wireless devices. These are like a Raspberry Pi kind of a thing, or are they like more?
Yeah, I mean, this is just like a wireless solution for a device that never was set up for a wireless capability.
Oh, okay. So you've
Input the network information of it.
yeah.
Are able to get on the wireless network.
So you've deployed an additional wireless network in your hospital on top of your corporate and medical device and guest networks, specifically for a unique device. And so as long as that additional wireless network is routed or layered into like the core where we can get a copy of the traffic, we'll see everything that's transmitting on there. That would just be a design consideration that we can figure out. Yeah. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So your appliance sits at the core. Does it scan every single packet?
Yes.
So emails, voice IP,
Mhm.
whole deal.
Yep. So obviously we have to get the right size. There's a lot of considerations in the design that go into that, but our collecting server has the horsepower to do that. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and end the conversation here. I'm gonna thank you guys for being here. I will stay here and we'll answer any other questions. Feel free to, but I like to end things early, so get people to go do whatever you want to do before your next thing. We're in booth number 600. Please stop by. We'll go into a more in-depth conversation. I'll introduce Steve as well. Steve actually has deployed and run this. He's here in our booth this week. He was the biomed director for Scripps Healthcare in San Diego. And so you don't have to take my word for it. You can ask somebody that actually has done this and implemented it and lived in all of your shoes. So thank you very much for being here. I'm going to stick around up at the front if there's any further questions. Thank you.